In the name of Allah, the most gracious and the most merciful. Good morning, everyone. On behalf of Wateen Almaarefa Club, it's our pleasure to welcome you to today's special session titled From Spa Treatment to Preventive Health. This session explores the evolving role of wellness and beauty treatments, transforming from a luxury into a vital part of modern preventive health. We are honored to have with us today Ms. Lisa Starr, an internationally renowned expert in the spa and wellness industry. With decades of experience, Ms. Starr has contributed significantly to the development of wellness strategies and spa operations around the globe, guiding organizations toward a more health-focused and sustainable future. We are equally privileged to have this session moderated by Professor Ibtisam Al-Madi, President of the SAWA Association, and a leading voice in promoting preventive health and community well-being. Thank you for joining us. We hope this session inspires new perspectives and valuable insights into the future of health and wellness.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you so much for that very nice introduction, and we're very happy to be here today to talk about wellness and to talk about preventive health. Now I know Lisa, our friend already introduced Lisa, and Lisa, I've known her for several years, a leading international expert in spa business, and she works globally in many, many countries, so we've had the opportunity and the privilege to have her here in Saudi Arabia a couple of times, talking to business owners and how they can include spa treatments and different aspects of business. And when I talked to Lisa initially, Lisa was a little bit worried. She said, I'm not a health expert and I'm not in the health field, but I told her that wellness is a very broad concept. And we have to be very much aware that not all wellness occurs in the clinic or with a pill. And we have to adapt different lifestyle activities to encourage wellness in a preventive manner. So to reduce the burden of disease and reduce our visits to doctors and pharmacists and dentists. We need to take care of ourselves in different manners. And I think that starts with lifestyle, and definitely the Saudi Arabian Wellness Association is partaking in the Vision 2030 in the Quality of Life program. And that envelops different aspects for lifestyle changes, incorporating exercise, incorporating self-care. And it would be very interesting to see with Lisa's understanding of global wellness and what occurs on a global aspect, what we can do to bridge the gap between wellness in clinical settings and in lifestyle. So Lisa, from your vantage point of working with global wellness and the Global Wellness Summit and all of the international wellness conferences that you've attended, and through your journalistic work, and I do know you have a podcast about wellness and all things well-being. How do you define wellness in the wellness industry today, and how has its core offering evolved beyond the traditional spa treatments to align more closely with health outcomes and changes in healthcare?
That's a big question. First, I want to thank you for your attention and thank you for the invitation to be here with you. It's wonderful that you want to hear about this topic, because wellness, what does it mean, right? It's not really easy to define it, and I would say that 10 years ago, it wasn't even a concept that most people understood. But if you look at Google searches for the term wellness, you will see how it has taken off in the last 10 or 15 years. Wellness is something we want as consumers. You can't ask someone, would you like to be well? And they'll say, no, that's okay. I don't need to be well. I mean, everyone wants to be well, but how you accomplish that is different for everyone. So I think that what has happened in the spa field, traditionally, it was body treatments, hair, nails. You felt good. It built your self-esteem. It certainly has effects on your body. We know that massage lowers blood pressure. We know that when people feel well and that they look well, they feel better. But there's no hard data about it. And I think we have seen the biggest lift come from, strangely enough, the pandemic. Because when the world shut down and people had to be alone in their homes for months on end, as soon as businesses were able to reopen, in the US we reopened starting July 2020 in most places, and all of a sudden all the clients came to the spa. They all wanted to be touched by humans. They wanted to do things that made them feel better, and it gave a great lift to our industry, the spa industry. Spa and wellness have continued to meld. And now that consumers have discovered, I go to the spa and I feel better, but I only go to the spa 1 hour a month, right? That's not enough to make me better. What else can I do? And they are looking to spas and wellness providers to teach them what is beyond. So they're not coming to the medical profession for that. Right? They're not going to their doctor once a year. They're going to their spa provider that they see more frequently. And I find this is a way in which we can coexist, if you will, both sides working together.
That's excellent. And I do see a lot of interest now for what were spa treatments now incorporate more medical practitioners or nutritionists to talk about how to, on a daily basis, change your lifestyle to be more well so that you reduce the frequency, and especially in a country like ours where we have free healthcare. The Vision 2030 is to reduce the burden of disease because that really changes the amount of expenditure and economics for healthcare. So it might be a little bit in contrast to, for example, other countries that are a pay-for-service. Maybe your doctor doesn't really take into consideration your well-being because you come with a specific clinical aspect, a disease, you get treatment, and there's no really follow-up in terms of how you can change your lifestyle to reduce that. But I think that this is part of what we're trying to do here in Saudi Arabia, and maybe these aspects of finding the hard data that you were mentioning with our young researchers here to see the effects of spa activities, of after a massage, the lowering of blood pressure, different activities that might lower your cortisol levels. That might be something interesting to take a look into so that we do bridge the gap between what we know and what should be enveloped in that. So for our audience of medical doctors and health students, the concept of wellness really is not incorporated in our day-to-day teaching and in our day-to-day learning in health colleges. It resides outside the conventional clinical pathway. So in what do you think, Lisa, in what tangible ways can hospitals or clinics or even individual practitioners begin to strategically integrate proven wellness principles beyond just treating illness to promote preventative health and improve patient quality of life?
So when you look at the high picture of it, what we're seeing globally is that it starts with the building, and hospitals adopting the well building standard and creating facilities that incorporate natural light, biophilic design, bringing the outside in, pathways to walk through, are having much better outcomes with patients just from that. But you can't rebuild your hospital, I understand. So what you can do when you're already existing is think about how you're communicating with patients about what they'll do once they're out of your care. How will you extend the benefits of what they've learned? It can't be through taking a pill, right? Lifestyle changes has to happen. And you get varying percentage estimates on preventative disease, lifestyle disease in the world, somewhere between 60 and 70%, you know these numbers from the World Health Organization, almost 60 or 70% of disease is estimated to be a lifestyle disease, meaning it didn't need to happen, but it happened through unhealthy practices of the person. So in the medical profession as well as in spa, we need to encourage people to adapt a few healthy habits. Take a walk every day, practice breath work, practice meditation. These are things that don't cost money. Anyone can do them, but they need to be encouraged to do them by both sides, by the medical side as well as spa practitioners, telling them these things are important to maintain your health going forward. I don't know how many of you are wearing an Apple Watch or a Fitbit like I am. It's tracking my breath work, my pulse, doesn't track my blood pressure, but my steps every day. They become part of us, and sometimes you stop even looking at it, but it's there for a reason. Like, let's take a look at how we're doing. Do you get up and move every hour? Do you do stretches? These are simple things that we can do that we just forget because we're hunched over our computers at our desks all day, which doesn't help any of us in the long run. We need to put down our devices and get outside and walk around. And also be with community. We know that in the blue zones, for instance, people that live a long time and a healthy life are in part of a community. It's very important. You have a very community-based culture where you work as family and you're together, and that is a wonderful thing, and you really want to continue to emphasize that, doing things with others.
And I think that's very important in our culture, that we do have a very strong community. And I think recently, with modernization in Saudi Arabia, we've become more and more isolated, and more families are becoming, rather than the multi-generational family that were available 20, 30 years ago, where the same family, the grandparents and the fathers and mothers and children lived in the same house, and there was a very strong communal. It's becoming a little bit different. So we have to really look at that, because different aspects of wellness include emotional well-being as well as mental well-being, and that does, and as you mentioned with the pandemic, we did see that the effect of that very, very strongly. Another thing is you're an expert in the business of spa and wellness, and when we're talking about business of healthcare and medical business and spa business, what do you think is the compelling business case for healthcare providers or our future healthcare providers to invest in and offer wellness-centric services? What do you think, the economic benefits or return on investment that we can see globally with wellness offerings, and when it's effectively integrated into healthcare models?
Well, that's a very loaded question, because depending on how you approach it, there's no benefit to healthcare if no one's sick and they're not spending the money. Now, you have a different model in this country, but in many countries, we only go to the doctor when we're sick. We have a problem that needs solving. We're not going for preventative. But when you think about what is spent globally on healthcare, there is a lot to be gained from that. So the Global Wellness Institute, I don't know if you know of that, but it's an organization that tracks data globally in wellness sectors. They track 11 different sectors. One of those being preventative health care, public and preventative health care. And that is the fifth fastest growing sector. I think it was valued in 2023 at about $600 billion. And it has grown tremendously since COVID. And this is people who are seeking advice in healthcare to help stay well and have wellness practices. But all that money, that $600 billion, is still only 6% of global spending on healthcare. We're spending much, much more once we're sick than we do to be well. If we were able to work on those numbers, we could spend more money on research, on programs that were more widely available in lower income countries, because that is where the big impact is. The lower income countries have the biggest proportionally impact of lifestyle disease because they don't have the means to avoid it. So we could definitely take the money that is spent and shift it into have better outcomes, but that certainly takes time.
And I think we recently had a note from, or a presentation from the Ministry of, or the Minister of Health, mentioning that the health span, or the longevity, or the age in certain parts of Saudi Arabia exceeded the normal or the average health span for the rest of the population in Saudi Arabia. And when you looked at it, it wasn't in the urban cities where there were a lot of hospitals or very advanced hospital intervention. It was actually in rural places where people integrated wellness and wellness activities naturally. And that's where you had the people approaching 90 and 100 years old, not because they went to doctors frequently and got medical attention, it was because they lived a healthy lifestyle. So I think if we come down to wellness in our country, in our culture, it's the term afia has been a term that our Prophet, peace be upon him, mentioned 1400 years ago, and saying that we should seek wellness. So as'alullah al-afiyah. And this is something that I think we forget, that it's part of our culture and part of our Islamic traditions. And if we can revisit these and take a look at the evidence that is proposed internationally, we can arrive at some differences that can really affect how people move forward. And I wanted to take a look into research, and I know that the university here is very focused on research aspects, and there's a lot of research incorporated within undergraduate and postgraduate studies. So for our researchers in the audience and our research students, how critical do you think, Lisa, is robust scientific evidence in validating the effectiveness of various wellness modalities, okay? So I'm a researcher myself, and I might help you out with this question to discuss, but what types of research do you think is most needed to bridge the perception gap between SPA and science? And where do you see the biggest opportunities for collaboration between wellness industry and medical research institutions? And we might pick the brain of our robust researchers here, Professor Muhammad and Professor Muhammad Ghanem.
Research is always needed, right? We always want proof. And we have these two bodies of people, the medical establishment, who rely on analytics and data as they should. And we have on the spa practitioner side, people who are more intuitive and rely on feel and relationship. And it makes sense that those two don't always see the same way, right? The medical side wants to see the data, and the spa researchers, the spa practitioners say, well, I know that when I give my guest a facial or a massage, they feel better, but I don't have a number to measure it by. So we do need more research, and that's something the Global Wellness Institute has worked hard to do, to kind of quantify these different sectors of wellness and what is spent and what the outcomes are. But we also need to give credence to anecdotal evidence and the way people feel. On the medical side, I think that when I go to the doctor for my annual checkup, if they don't ask me what I do with my body, how I eat, how I sleep, then I wonder, how can you assess how well I am? Because that's all part of it. But on the medical side, they're focused on my blood pressure and the other data, which is part of the story, but it is not the whole story. It's not the whole being. We have to holistically look at that whole being together and treat people that way. So it's hard to say, it's hard to quantify the effect of, I had a facial today, I feel better, and I look nice, my skin looks good, I feel more confident. How do you put a number on that? And yet, we could all relate to the fact that it is effective. So I don't know the path forward is the big answer. How do we, each side, recognize that we We need the data, and yet we need to understand how humans also react. Let me say that something I want to share with you, you may not know about, is an initiative begun by the Global Wellness Institute called Wellness Evidence. It's a website that you can go to, wellnessevidence.com, and it lists there many modalities that were traditional spa or wellness modalities with peer-reviewed studies on their efficacy. The last time I looked, there were over 20 different, of course, massage is there, but many other things are being added. Cryotherapy has just been added, for instance. So you can go there and look at peer-reviewed studies with data and feel much better about what you might be recommending to your patients in the future, because where there is data, we are certainly sharing it.
On the mention of cryotherapy, I first started with anecdotal evidence of well-being after a cryotherapy 3.5-minute session. It really had a big effect. And then I started researching the evidence behind whole body cryotherapy treatments. And there's a lot of evidence that it really does affect the immune system. It affects the well-being of practitioners. So this is something that really it's already researched, but maybe it should be put more out into the public.
Sorry, let me say, one of the leading causes of disease and illness that you all see is inflammation, right? So many people have inflammation, and something like cryotherapy 2 or 3 times a week lowers that for 3 minutes. Non-invasive. I mean, what a wonderful therapy.
And the research is out there. So I think when we're talking about spa and wellness, there might be some skepticism toward wellness interventions within the medical community. But I think let's take a step back. And I said we did find research on different modalities. But you as a journalist, how do you see the industry best communicate the value proposition to healthcare professionals, and what steps can be taken to build a greater trust and credibility for wellness practices within a medical framework? So we're tapping into your journalistic ability.
You know, as a journalist, I'm a contributing editor at Spa Business magazine in the UK. As Dr. Besma shared with you, I also host a podcast for wellness professionals. So I do get to visit facilities as an outsider and look at what's happening and see wonderful, amazing experiences that are not data-driven, right? It's experiential. You go, you enjoy the facility, the treatments, the experiences that they may have, and then you leave, and I don't see medical magazines coming to these places and doing the same kind of story. The two are existing in silos right now. I don't see medical professionals reading spa and wellness journals, and vice versa. I mean, we're not reading the New England Journal of Medicine because a lot of what is written there is not layman's terms. So I don't know how we bridge that gap, but I do think it's important that we try to facilitate understanding on both sides. Yes, scientists want data. They want to know there was a result that is measurable. But not everything is measurable. And I think that as from the wellness perspective, maybe we need to invite more medical professionals to come to our facilities and enjoy treatments and just see how they feel. I would urge you, all of you in this audience, raise your hands, who goes to a spa regularly? Come on. Okay, we have a few ladies over here. Gents, you're next. If you go and you experience what happens there, you're undoubtedly going to see there's a benefit to that. But if you have never tried it, you can't recommend it. So that's my first advice, is to find a local spa and go and enjoy some treatments and see how you feel. And then you're much more confident to recommend it to your patients.
And I think something very important that you mentioned, the New England Journal of Medicine versus Spa Business magazine. We in the medical profession don't have industry magazines. We have hardcore research journals, and vice versa. I don't think in the spa industry you have any type of research-oriented journals.
Not a publication, no.
So I think the crossway between an industry type of journal that can take the research and translate it into layman's terms might be something interesting to look at, because even our students sometimes find it difficult to read research papers that are very scientifically oriented and to translate that into clinical practice. So maybe this is something that's interesting to learn from the spa and wellness industry, and vice versa. I think you need a little bit more research-oriented articles that can focus with the researchers there. So I think that's a very good gap and opportunity for the Saudi Arabian Wellness Association to create these type of industry-related journals that are focused for medical practitioners, and vice versa, to input more scientific research in the industry-related journals in spa and wellness. So that could be a good crossover.
I think it's a full circle thing. As you're speaking, I'm thinking about this, that you go into a situation without data, right? You go to have a spa treatment, and the spa practitioner gives you some advice about how to take care of yourself when you leave. These are choices that we make. And I mentioned earlier about lifestyle disease. We choose to eat a certain way, get the right amount of sleep, move our bodies in the way that we need to. But when we learn to make the right choices, you do see the effect on your health. I was at a spa with my husband, which was a medical spa, and we both had HRV tests, heart rate variability tests, and my number came back much lower, and my biological age was at least a decade below what it actually is. And my husband said, how did you do that? And it's not a thing you just did this morning, right? It's like it takes time to have that effect. It takes the choices that you make every day to have that effect. So in terms of measurement, it's not easy to suddenly come up with data. But if we start one person at a time, one recommendation at a time, and people start living healthier, we will see the effect. And the ultimate goal, I think, would be to take the funds that are put towards illness and be able to put them towards sharing wellness among more peoples.
That's excellent. So you've been to Saudi Arabia a couple of times now, and we welcome you.
Thank you.
And I wanted to ask you, with what you've seen here in Jeddah, considering the unique cultural and healthcare landscape in Saudi Arabia, what specific wellness principles or integration strategies do you believe hold particular promise here? Are there global examples of successful integration that could serve as models, and also while respecting local traditions and healthcare infrastructure?
Well, you have a tricky path to navigate as you market a business here. I've spent the last 4 days giving a business management course, and it's different here because of your gender separation and your cultural traditions. Doesn't make it impossible, but needs to be navigated. I think that we're seeing really interesting business models around the world that are taking elements of healthcare and elements of wellness and putting them together, and consumers are interested in that. They want that new. I shared in my course this week about a business in the US that is owned by a doctor, primary care physician, and his wife is a physical therapist. They opened a facility in Iowa, the middle of the US, not near anything, and they offer primary health care, physical therapy, facials, massages, behavioral counseling, yoga classes, and people are coming and they're finding this is a really good mix for me. You know, I see my doctor and then I take a yoga class. Why not? Right? So there are no rules around what can or cannot be in one or another facility. I visited in Jeddah a brand new business, Soul, Mind and Body, and it's very interesting what she's doing. Co-working space, yoga classes, sound healing classes, a cafe, some treatments, LED treatments. There's no reason different things can't be mixed. I'm urging you to think outside the box, to read the journalism about what's happening in other countries and other places and try it. I think the Saudi people are curious, interested, intelligent. They want to see the new models, but you just aren't seeing much of it yet. I think every time I come here, I think this is my third visit, already I see how fast things are moving. But you need to think differently from what you've seen here. When you look at what's happening in Asia in healthcare, lots of interesting wellness and healthcare aspects under one roof are very common because that is their tradition. Right? If you look at TCM or Ayurveda, that's just been carried through into the wellness practices of today. And you have traditional Arabic and Islamic medicine traditions as well. How can you incorporate them in a broader model? It's up to you to think about that.
That's very interesting. We had a panel discussion a while ago with the National Center for Alternative and Complementary Medicine. And this is something that this center licensed non-traditional or non-contemporary medical practices. And one of the major practices that have been practiced in Saudi Arabia and continue to be practiced in Saudi Arabia but need a lot of research is hijama, or wet cupping. Mm-hmm. And this is something that has been practiced for decades and centuries in this part of the world. And we need to see the scientific aspect behind it and how that really incorporates into medical practice and the benefits of that. So I think we have a lot of research to do, and interesting both quantitative and qualitative type of research that can be incorporated. And another thing that I thought would be interesting for our young researchers is what do you think the skills or understanding as they're shaping their health care career in front of them, what skills or understanding of the wellness economy do you think they should cultivate now so that they can effectively merge clinical practice with holistic well-being? And what advice would you give these young minds about navigating the evolving landscape, as you mentioned, with incorporating different practices within the same healthcare facility? Mm-hmm. What else do you think you can recommend?
I think the first thing I would say is get yourself to a spa or a wellness center nearby, have a treatment, see what they're doing, think about how you feel when you came in and when you left. Is it better? Then it's something worth sharing. Yoga is something that is a regular practice around the world. I haven't seen as much here, but if you are a yoga practitioner, there's never a bad class, right? Every time you go to yoga, you feel better afterwards. So as younger people, if you incorporate these practices into your life, you're then going to be able to recommend them to your patients, and you're going to see solutions for them that aren't necessarily pharmacological, right? That are lifestyle driven, that help people to feel better. But be curious. Be curious about what is going on out in the world. When you travel, go to wellness businesses. When I land in a new city and I go to the middle of the city, I get my map app out and I put in wellness, what's around me. And sometimes I find things that aren't really wellness, and sometimes they are, and they're very interesting. So we need to learn from each other because this has not been done. Like this navigation we're in the middle of, there's not a model for it. Healthcare and wellness in the world merging hasn't happened before. It takes all of us to be aware, curious, and share what we've learned and come back and bring those practices to where we live.
And I think as you were mentioning yoga or Ayurveda or different practices around the world, it's important to understand that we have practices in our society, in our culture, and maybe they haven't been polished off and marketed like yoga and Ayurveda. And we want to make sure that we really look into our culture and take a look at what we can present and we can present to the world. I know of, for example, in Qatar, Shivasom has opened up and they've included traditional Islamic medicine within their spa and resorts. So they do have medical practitioners. They do practice hijama. They practice different modalities so that you can have a week-long retreat that incorporates some medical practice, but then it incorporates throughout the week how you instill lifestyle changes so that you can continue this after you come back from the retreat and carry it back with you. So I think that we've just, the discussion that we're having is just to open up ideas and open up possibilities. And certainly, while we're talking, I've had some of ideas with research. So Dr. Sherbini, Dr. Ghanem, I'm going to be working with you on some research regarding this with your students. And definitely, as we're talking about journalism and how to present this incorporation to the world, we could here in Saudi Arabia provide a very interesting model that could be presented worldwide. And I do know that there are the Ministry of Health and the Ministry of Tourism are working together in bigger projects like NEOM and Red Sea Global to try to bring in international giants in wellness and well-being and healthcare facilities that are non-traditional to Saudi Arabia, and maybe we can have more of collaboration and input with that as well. So it is evidence-based, and it is something that you could have tangible data so that you can be more convinced and more convincing to your patients. So looking ahead, when we take a look at the integration between the future of healthcare and wellness, and as we look 5-10 years down the line, we're very close to our realization of Vision 2030. What do you envision as the ideal symbiotic relationship between the conventional healthcare system and wellness industry? And how do you think this partnership could fundamentally change how we approach health globally, and specifically within a rapidly developing nation like Saudi Arabia?
Imagining the future, always fun to think about. So let's think about it's 2035, and if I'm sick or I need a surgery, I go to a hospital. But otherwise, I go to a different kind of center that has physicians and primary care people. It has wellness practitioners. Maybe it gives classes in healthy cooking and nutrition. Perhaps there are movement classes there. Elements of all the things we've been talking about in one roof as a real wellness center where if I went there more often, I'd be less often at the hospital or at the primary care doctor. I think I would love to see that in the future. I think we are seeing strains of it happen in the Southeast Asia. I mean, Thailand is very progressive in how they combine wellness and medicine. I would love to see a world in which the hospital part was only for the really bad things, which will still happen. I mean, let's face it, but can we control it? And can we get people to live a healthier life and enjoy the benefits of that and see the bounty is that I live longer? I mean, the big word that we're hearing now is longevity. This word, you're going to be seeing this word quite a lot. I was at the FIBO conference in Cologne, Germany last month, which is the largest fitness conference in the world. 150,000 people go. And they had a day-long summit on longevity within FIBO. And it was the way that longevity will be practiced with hospitality, how they will have hospitality companies bringing in longevity. Now, none of us are thinking about my longevity when I choose my hotel, right? I'm not thinking about how that's going to affect my life in the long term, but what if it did? What if there are aspects of a hotel visit that allow me to live my life the way I do when I'm home? And as a constant traveler, I can tell you that that's always a challenge. I have a very healthy lifestyle when I'm home, but maintaining that when I'm not can be difficult. Why? Because the hotel gym isn't sufficient, or there's nowhere for me to take a walk, or the healthy food choices are not there. So I would love to see us all just moving towards making that accessible to everyone and a more normal practice of business. I hope that answered your question.
No, that's very eye-opening. I had recently a couple of discussions with friends who were taking non-conventional visits, international travel. We usually travel for leisure. You go to Europe, you go to Southeast Asia, and you go to the city. We're very interested in city destinations. But I find more and more colleagues of mine that are going to, you know, Vietnam to hike, or to, like you said, Thailand for a resort, something unconventional, but at the same time, they come back with a different view of how their lifestyle is and what they should be eating, what they should be doing, and activities during the day. And just, we were having a discussion last night, you know, the Greeks have a very laid-back way of you know, practicing life, and that laid-back way is a stress reducer, in which, you know, European or American societies have ingrained within their work-life balance this more work than life, and stressful. And I think as we're developing as a nation, and we're developing rapidly, and we have different work culture currently than we did 20 or 25 years ago, we have to be very aware that we don't fall in the trap of becoming a very highly stressed culture like, you know, Western cultures, and try to adapt more into, well, not as laid back, but Greek cultures, or different cultures that might take a more of a less stressful, maybe more Scandinavian, less stressful type of work balance. So I think that's very, very interesting. I hope there's a lot of questions from the audience, and certainly I would like to see what we can incorporate in terms of research, so that we can validate a lot of what Lisa has been saying, and see how we can promote that within you know, our healthcare facilities.
I'd like to add one comment, if I may, because something you said made me think of it. One of the sectors tracked by Global Wellness Institute is wellness tourism. And that is becoming a very big sector and growing, because people, as they travel, whether for leisure or business, want to be well, and they are seeking out destinations that allow them to do that, as I just mentioned. You're about to open to the world with Red Sea Global and NEOM some very cutting-edge facilities, and people are going to come from other countries to see it, and they're going to want to go on hikes and take their yoga classes and eat their healthy food the way they do at home. It's a great opportunity for the country, for the kingdom here, to show the world that you play along, you know, that you understand and you can supply those things too, because wellness tourism, everyone wants to travel and be happy and healthy when they do it, whether it's for business or leisure.
And the natural landscape of Saudi Arabia in the West Coast, I mean, everybody thinks of Saudi Arabia as a desert, but we do have very vast country with different landscapes, and the utilization and incorporation of nature within that. I think part of Vision 2030 is wellness tourism as well, and you know, inviting people from all over the world to come explore Saudi Arabia, but not only in a traditional sense, but also in showcase. We have a very strong and robust healthcare system here in Saudi Arabia, so we can showcase that, and we can also incorporate wellness in it. Do we have any questions from the audience?
Thanks, Professor, and Lisa, thanks for this fruitful discussion. I have a lot of questions, and you answered most of them regarding using aromatherapy and also hydrotherapy as combination with a medical treatment. This is a very, very good opportunity for our researcher and for us to start this point. And also regarding our culture, the complementary and alternative medicine play a critical role in the treatment, and it will get a good response from the community. I think we can start a project with collaboration regarding using aromatherapy or using certain essential oils for medical treatment in combination with spa. What do you think if we start a community regarding that? It will be very, very good it will be a very good step to start and encourage our young researcher to engage in this research. This is my question. What do you think, what steps to encourage our young researcher to be engaged in this community? Thanks.
I'm so glad you mentioned that about aromatherapy, because we haven't mentioned it before, but it is an excellent practice, and we know the efficacy of those oils. They've been used for thousands of years very effectively to combat illness and other conditions. So I'm glad to hear that it's present mind now to bring them back to practice. You younger folks here, how many of you are familiar with aromatherapy or have used oils for a specific reason? I see 2 of you. So you know when you have a respiratory issue, you use eucalyptus oil. You want rosemary to remember more. Geranium is great for your skincare. Tea tree, highly antifungal, antibacterial, really great for cleansing. No reason those can't be used in healthcare and incorporated into practices once people return home. But it is maybe not, it's news here. I'm not sure how much it has been a present part for your population, but I'm glad to hear that you're interested in doing it, because they're very powerful, those oils. And we have to learn to use them in a healthy way, straight or with a carrier oil where indicated, but I think that there's no reason at all you shouldn't push forward on that.
And I think we have the possibility to do not only for research, but to do workshops on utilization of aromatherapy, because I think going to a wellness center is all well and good, but bringing the wellness into your own home, and this is something that is a new concept that is going on now, is how you change your home to be more wellness oriented, to take a look at the purity of the water, to have essential oils and diffusers, you know, for picking up your mood or trying to focus. Even the emotional things with aromatherapy are very, very interesting to see and measure before and after. So I think, and again, we go back to industry versus research. We are researchers by nature, but then when we take the recommendations from the research and apply it to industry, we need to see how we can promote that in terms of industry practices. Just like when we have a clinical trial and then we have a recommendation, and then we see how we can establish that into a standard that is used in medical practice. So I think there's a lot of opportunity that we can take from practices in healthcare and see how we can bring up wellness to be, you know, at the same level of evidence-based practices that we do in healthcare.
Question there? Go ahead.
Yes, hello. I'd like to thank you, Dr. Ibtisam Al-Madhi and Dr. Lisa, for raising such an important concern. And honestly, it piqued my interest, and inshallah I will look more into it for research. But I just wanted to ask a simple question regarding, as you know, the stigma, especially in the Middle Eastern countries, as to, you know, spa treatment for men. You know, so what are the possible like alternatives and maybe the measures we can do here to raise more awareness and get more young men to be interested in that sort of thing?
In getting interested in receiving them?
In receiving these services, yeah.
So I told you I gave 2 courses this week on spa management, and I had someone in the course here in Riyadh who runs a men's spa. Only men go, very busy. So it is getting popular. I was told by other people here in the kingdom that 60% of the spa visits are from men versus 40% for women, which is not a number we see in the rest of the world. So I do think it's growing. I think that they need to see it in the media. Unfortunately, that seems to be the way that things in the world. I saw a picture of a man on TikTok getting a spa treatment, and so maybe I'll try it. Maybe you have to be the one who goes out and does a TikTok of yourself getting a spa treatment and put it out there to the world. But I think that when you all see other people doing it, that's human nature. We say, oh, it's okay for me too. All the research in medicine has been done on men. And there's been a push in the last 10 years to really get more female-centered data. But the data we have tends to be from men, from what men's bodies do. So they're already out there getting that data. Let's get you out there and get more massages and facials. The fellow that ran the spa told me that pedicures are super popular among the men that come to him. We all bodies are the same. We have the same need, but it does need to be normalized in the culture for sure. Thank you for that question. Besma, do you have?
I do think it's getting more popular. I think the word spa for ladies is more associated with facials and manicure and pedicure, when it isn't all that. And we were talking the other day that 10 years ago, spas and hotels were primarily male-oriented. They were not allowed for women to go to spas in hotels. So that was present even before, getting popular now. And so I just think that the understanding of what it is to go to a spa, and it's not just a facial or a manicure or pedicure, although they're becoming very, very popular now, but it's the act of taking care of yourself and taking care of your body. So it's not just physical, but it's also a mental. We think it's, especially I think what you're saying, as a health student in a health university, you've been, prior to joining the university, very focused on getting your grades, very focused on high achieving, on being studious, and you're not thinking of relaxing. So this might be the stigma that you think that if you go to a spa, it's a relaxation, and in our culture, we think that, I have to be thinking of others, not thinking of myself, but it's taking care of yourself that allows you to take care of others. So sometimes it's not the stigma of, it's just the understanding of, this is just like you would take your car to change the oil and to, tune the tires. You have to take your body to do that. So it's guys think it's okay to go to the gym very frequently, and this is how you take care of your body, but you need the physical, physical activity of exercise, but you need the downside of doing the muscle manipulation. If you went to a physiotherapist, you wouldn't think of it as a stigma, but it's very similar.
I want to build on that a little bit, which is to say that having the spa treatment is great, but there's a lot that goes around it. And when we chart the service delivery cycle of someone finding the spa, calling, navigating the website, figuring out what to get, arriving, having the treatment is only part of it. Part of it is the self-care of someone waiting on you and someone taking care of you when you enter, showing you where to sit, getting you a cup of tea. We're all taking care of others all the time, and it's very rare that we take the time for ourselves. But just like on the airplane, when they do the announcement at the beginning and they say, when the oxygen mask comes down, take care of yourself before you can take care of others. I mean, especially when you work in healthcare, which is a very demanding field, don't get burned out. Take care of yourself and do the things that you need to do so you can be at your best to help others.
And we also have a comment from Dr. Hamoud online from the National Center for Complementary and Alternative Medicine. He just wanted to comment on the regulatory aspect and the regulations within Saudi Arabia that allow for the local culture and the traditional practices of Saudi Arabia and its importance in wellness. And this is something that we've had a lot of discussions in our last panel discussion. We had Dr. Hamoud talking about the regulations in Saudi Arabia and not necessarily adapting anything that comes from abroad, because they do have ideological background that might not be suitable for us in Saudi Arabia. Also, he wanted to highlight the aspect of tourism and wellness tourism and resorts, and that is a key aspect in Saudi Arabia's vision to attract local and international tourism. And there's a very strong possibility of providing culturally based Saudi traditions and showcasing that for visitors locally or internationally within the GCC or a broader international base. And we were talking about within our Saudi Arabian Wellness Association and within the National Center for Complementary and Alternative Medicine and within the university here, the training aspect, training medical practitioners to do, they've had within the center a lot of medical practitioners that were interested in taking a short course on wet cupping, hijama. So the possibility of giving courses that are awareness courses or courses that are training courses within these wellness aspects and incorporating them with healthcare and for healthcare practitioners such as nurses or physiotherapists is very important to see how we can talk about these standards and the ability of the association to set these standards at a higher level. So I'd like to thank Dr. Hamoud for these questions and comments, actually, and see what your intake on that is.
It's an excellent point about the regulatory framework because you don't have as much of it here for wellness in particular. And that's not necessarily the case around the world. Many US, very strong regulation around that. Other countries, not so much. But you want to adapt some kind of framework so there is confidence in the public in the work that those people do. And there are many standards you can adapt. We're not here to say that what happens in Saudi has to be what happens in the rest of the world. Of course, you want to be sensitive to your culture and your practices, but I do think that when there is a regulatory framework for professionalism, I mean, we're not going to a dentist who hasn't been formally trained, right? So we need to raise the level of those practitioners to the point where they are also licensed or certified in some way with some standard. And there are international standards you can easily adapt. So that's a great point.
And I think not only in Saudi Arabia, but also in the neighboring countries, there aren't any licensing or there are certifications here and there, but in terms of licensing, and we've all seen, or at least, probably Dr. Ghanem and I have seen the progress of healthcare here in Saudi Arabia, where 25 years ago it was enough to have your certificate from the university to practice anywhere. But now we have the Saudi Council for Health Specialties, which regulates and examines and re-examines. So you have to have continuing professional education to renew your licensing ability and the ability to license people that are coming from different countries with different type of degrees. So this is something that SAWA is very focused on in terms of standards, regulation, certification, and licensing, and adapting international standards, as you mentioned, but also developing standards that are, that fit in culturally within our standards, as well as standards for wellness in the workplace, which is something that I think is very, very important nowadays, that workplaces have the possibility to engage in wellness, and we were thinking about creating a wellness index for different workplaces to showcase how they take care of their employees so they don't burn out, especially in healthcare settings. And this is something that we saw primarily during COVID, that there was a lot of mental breakdown, there was a lot of physical breakdown. Our healthcare workers were heroes during COVID, but at what expense? So this is something that we need to take a look at and make sure that we don't burn out our healthcare practitioners.
Yes, everybody needs to be balanced to do their best work. So I think once you have standards and certification, wellness in the workplace then becomes easier to implement because the importance of it is understood by everyone. There's nothing wrong with having a nap pod. Sometimes you need to take 10 minutes and lay down, certainly in the medical profession, but even in offices today. Finding ways for people to have, again, access to healthy food and snacks and not just unhealthy snacks that you often find in the vending machine. So it's easy to do these things. It just takes maybe one more step of effort on someone's behalf to make this wellness accessible. Beyond the building, you know, I mentioned earlier, if you build buildings in a certain way, the wellness follows. But once the building is already built, there's plenty that you can do within it to keep your staff well. If everyone is well, they are productive. And if they are productive, as a society, we move forward. There's nothing better.
Any more questions or comments? Well, I'd like to thank you so much for your time, Lisa. I mean, we've welcomed you to Saudi Arabia. This is the third time you've been here, and I hope you enjoyed your time here in the university and hosted by Sawa. And we hope you come back many more times, and we start to work together regarding incorporating preventative measures in spa within wellness and healthcare. So thank you very much.
We extend our sincere gratitude to our distinguished guest, Ms. Lisa Starr, for such an inspiring session. Her insights have shed light on the evolving role of wellness and spa practices as essential components of preventative healthcare. Our thanks also go to Professor Ibtisam Al-Madi for her exceptional moderation and thoughtful guidance throughout the discussion. And of course, thank you to each and every one of you for your presence and engagement. Your interest and participation reflect a shared commitment to advancing knowledge and promoting a more holistic approach to health and well-being. We hope today's session has offered you valuable perspectives and inspiration. We will look forward to welcoming you again at our future events, God willing. Peace and blessings be upon you all.